The reason you're seeing a lot of news lately about the internet is because these changes are going to kill anonymous browsing. The UK just passed a bill requiring users to verify their age before accessing apps like Reddit, Discord, X, and Blue Sky. Spotify is rolling out age verification where if you do not verify that you were over 18 by uploading a picture of yourself or your driver's license, you can no longer listen to music or podcasts that are deemed explicit. That means you'll be listening to a whole lot of Disney tunes with no curse words. And if you're under 13, you just straight up can't access Spotify in the first place. Even Xbox is joining the party, forcing players in the UK with accounts set to over 18 to prove they're adults. And it doesn't stop there. In December, Australia will be banning YouTube for anyone under 16. Imagine being 15 and suddenly losing access to one of the most fundamental parts of your online life. I mean, I was definitely on YouTube before I was 16, whether it was watching a video on how to tie a tie for the 20th time or watching epic rap battles in history. I guess these kids in Australia won't get to experience that. And before you go thinking that you're safe in the US, 24 states have already passed online age verification laws. That's why if you're living in Florida like me, you can no longer access some adult sites without providing your driver's license, which for obvious reasons, people do not want to do that. Also in the US, YouTube announced that they're going to be using AI to estimate our ages. That way they can filter content based on how old they think we are based on what you watch, which is insane. So basically, if you watch a lot of cartoons, YouTube may age restrict your account because they think you're a little kid. They'll basically monitor what little kid behavior is through age verified accounts and then judge that based on the content you watch and make a decision to say, this is a little kid pretending to be an adult, let's age restrict them. Because surely nothing will go wrong with that. These changes have been brewing in the background for a while now and they're finally here. But why? Why do they need to verify everyone's age on these platforms? The original framing is centered around stopping kids from accessing adult sites. But the argument gets tricky when you actually have to put rules in place to stop them from doing it. Because you can't stop kids from typing in a website into their phone or their iPad. And if you ask them how old they are, they can just lie. So you need proof, and that's what these companies are doing. They are making you show proof that you are the appropriate age to be viewing explicit content on their websites. The problem is, obviously, they don't know who is a kid and who isn't. So now everybody has to follow these rules and prove that they are the correct age. At least that's how Spotify, Reddit, and Discord are doing things. And like I said, YouTube will be doing the AI behavior recognition thing. Here's the issue though. We can all agree that protecting kids from harmful content is important, but it comes at a cost of your privacy. Admittedly, I do know that just because you upload a picture of yourself or your driver's license to a platform, it doesn't mean that everyone is going to know who you are. So in that sense, anonymous browsing isn't really dead, but your information will be stored on that platform. And just like we saw with the T app, you're going to be one data breach away from everyone knowing what you did on your burner account. And even if you have nothing to hide, that can still feel unsettling. Part of what makes it unsettling, for me at least, is not knowing how your information will be used in the future. We don't know what the future of technology will change about our everyday lives. I think about what happened with 23andMe as a great example of that. For years, people have been giving these people their literal DNA to figure out their ancestry. Fast forward, 23andMe went bankrupt and now all of that DNA is up for sale to God knows who. Sure, 25 years ago, the average person barely even understood what DNA was, so they weren't worried about who had a cotton swab of their saliva. But these days, we know that there's plenty that can be done with someone's DNA. And that gets into a bit of conspiracy land, but you understand what I'm saying. Technology evolves. Something we may not think needs to be protected now because it's not worrisome at the moment, that might not be the case in the future. And to backtrack a little bit, to be clear, you are not giving your information directly to Spotify, Discord, etc. They are working with a third party who collects that information on their behalf. And they all use different companies for the most part. So these third party companies you've never heard of are the ones with your information. And they are much less public facing, so when data breaches happen to them, it doesn't exactly make the front page news. Just something to consider. So, giving up your privacy aside, I do think there's another really big part to this that I think needs to be talked about. These changes also give companies the right to determine which content is deemed safe, which is a very, very slippery slope, because it can create a framework for censoring any content that they want in the name of protecting the children. You know, maybe you love fitness content, but now your favorite fitness influencer's content isn't allowed to be viewed on the platform because they say it promotes an unhealthy body image. You can see where that gets problematic, because if you take it further into conspiracy land, you are giving these companies or whoever is paying them even more control over the content you see. If they are allowed to label whatever content they want as harmful, they'll not only have the power to silence certain topics, they also theoretically can silence individual creators uploading that kind of content by calling them harmful. And those same creators won't be able to make new accounts without uploading their information, which could immediately get them flagged as harmful again, effectively censoring them from the platform completely. I won't go down the rabbit hole in this video, but there are plenty of examples of that already happening right now, where if you say specific words on TikTok, for example, your videos will magically fall into the void, never to be seen again. And yet, nudity is allowed on the platform. I'm sure that's safe for kids. Watch my video on that wild discovery if you haven't already. But back to the main topic. I do think it's worth mentioning the other side of this argument, because there really is a generation of kids growing up with social media addictions. Studies show that over 50% of kids today want to be content creators, which leads them to living on the internet, being exposed to inappropriate things at a much higher rate than we were as kids. And obviously that is going to have some negative effects. So say for a second that we believe protecting kids is the reason for these rules and regulations, I can see why people would support that. The problem with it is, when we agree to protect the children in this way, there doesn't seem to be a way to do that under these new rules that allows us to also keep our privacy. What does this mean for the future of the internet? Well, it means privacy as we know it on the internet is evaporating. Your anonymity is slipping away piece by piece every single time you're forced to verify your identity online. These new age verification systems require personal details, real, traceable, sensitive details. The internet that thrived on anonymity, freedom, and openness is becoming a tightly monitored space. I mean, I'm a young millennial and my generation was taught that the number one thing you don't do online is give out your information. Clearly, we've come a very long way since then. I personally think this is about a lot more than teenagers losing access to Reddit or YouTube. It's about redefining what it means to be online. The walls of anonymity that once protected users, soon that's not going to be a thing anymore, because at least someone is going to know who you are if you had to upload a picture of yourself or your license. And in a few years, we might look back at this situation and realize that this was the turning point, you know, the moment that we traded internet freedom for perceived safety. For the kids, of course.